Hello and welcome to the Growing Together podcast. We are super excited today because we have our first guest on ever. So I'm going to introduce Kyle. He is a peace warrior and conscious lover. Welcome to Growing Together. Thank you so much for being here and for allowing us to gain some wisdom from you.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'm excited to see how we share together.
Amazing. So I don't know if you want to just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about who you are, your little story, hero's journey, whatever comes to your mind. Do you want to share with the listeners today?
Okay, it would be a pleasure. So, born in South Africa, my whole life, my family's there. I love them so much. I love South Africa. But I felt a deep need and a calling to find my true path, my spiritual path. And I felt like it needed to draw me outside of South Africa. That was, I think, one of the biggest things. It was kind of like I was, stuck in this environment where I felt I wasn't myself. And the only way I could do that is to break free of my environment. So I had a friend and he was, we were playing tennis and he's like, listen, dude, I think you got to find yourself. And it's got to be in another country somewhere. So I'm like, dude, hit me. What's up? And he said, bro, I think you should move to Costa Rica. And then he said something like Pura Vida. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? It means pure life. And as soon as he said that, there was something that resonated super true to like what does pure life means. And I was just like, I love culture and I love different culture as well. So I just left like 2 weeks later, not really knowing they spoke Spanish here. That was like completely, out of the blue for me. And I ended up staying with the family and, cut to a long story short, ended up going through my spiritual awakening and figuring out who my truest version of myself is. And realizing that I knew that version of myself when I was a child. And so it was like this re-remembering of, oh, wow, this kid, knew it. He had the answers. He was shining so clear, but, this program and society and, bad Kyle, bad this is all this fucking like deep-seated programming that was just amplifying and adding to my exterior. So the last 10 years for me has been basically removing all of this kind of programming and toxicity from what it was and showing as clear as I can be as consistently as possible within all areas of my life. So, and then I've done, since then, just work-wise, it's been, I've just done a lot of stuff, just pushing myself to grow as much as possible. I was working with women who were in trauma. I had a retreat company with a friend of mine, Tanya, Vibrant Living Retreats. And that, went into other areas. And now I'm working primarily with men. I help men actually, focus their attention outside of their business, systematically pulling them outside and actually focusing on internal growth within in terms of sexuality, desire, safety, healing, conscious communication, conscious loving. So this is the area of coaching that I'm actually stepping into now a little bit more, as well as conscious coupling and uncoupling. Amazing. So it's been an interesting, beautiful journey so far. Yeah.
It sounds incredible. I think it's so interesting how you just took the leap and left like your home base and just started a new life. But I think it's such a beautiful way to push yourself so far out of your comfort zone in order to begin this journey of transformation and evolution. So kudos to you for taking that leap.
Thank you.
So obviously our podcast being basically themed around conscious relationships. I want to dig a little bit deeper into this new avenue that you've taken, well, your newest avenue in terms of conscious communication, conscious coupling. How did you start getting interested in that avenue, and what is it exactly that you do in terms of that?
So, a brief explanation. I like to go through something and in a way master what I'm doing in order to be able to facilitate, which is hyper important. So what took me on my journey and originally was opening up my relationship with one of my exes. And, at first, it's like, hey, okay, cool. We get to, see new people, but we still maintain the safety, and, there's no real rules or books on this shit. So how do we navigate it? We'll try to create agreements and see how that motors. But during that process, I realized how sexually charged I am, and how sensual I am, and how much I love women, and not necessarily to do with sex, but to do with sensuality and connection and safety and holding space. And, we did this for a couple of years, and I was just like, holy shit, like, oh my God, this is opening up a side of me that I didn't even know existed. And then I was seeing a lot of a woman. So as I was doing this, I was kind of like seeing a woman and then coming back to my partner, and seeing a woman come back to my partner. And, it was kind of like tampering with my values in essence, because it was this old school programming I had of, okay, you only be with one woman and this is how it is. But this new awareness that I had was, oh, this is free love. This is loving openly. This is loving freely. This is loving without any expectation. But again, it's the pendulum swing. I went completely the other way, which was just like, oh shit, okay, I gotta maybe calm this down, because a lot of it was kind of falling back onto my original partner. Drama, and other women reaching out to her, wanting to, befriend her, and all these type of things. And it ended up with a lot of confusion. So, with that, what ended up happening as well is this idea of when I was so triggered, and my values were so hurt. And let's just say, like, it wasn't in alignment with what was happening in my body. I started being affected in bed with other women. So I wasn't, performing like I thought I would naturally do. And what I realized, there was a break. I was connecting with too many people, and I wasn't building the sensuality and the softness and the safety with these other women. It was too quick and too fast. So that took me down a new process of, I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. Clearly, there's like a break in the system. So then what I did was I went celibate for about 3 months. And what this helped me do with my journey is learn to hold space with women without this idea that I had to have sex at the end of this. So it was this, how can I hold space with women safely and express my desires safely without this end goal of needing to have sex? So this took me on this idea of, what does holding space look like? How can a woman feel safe in my company knowing I don't have this objective? So this took me to my next relationship, which was this beautiful idea of conscious communication. And she taught me so much on being able to actually express where I'm at, my insecurities, my desires, my vulnerabilities, and see it as a complete strength and not a weakness. So all of this is kind of shifted and moved into this idea of, how do I communicate as best I can, as current as I can, when I'm feeling the most vulnerable in that space? Because it's easy to communicate my vulnerabilities and my sensitivities when I'm, feeling good. But when I'm feeling in that space of complete, utter, insecurity and scarcity, and I'm freaking out, and, I'm having these triggers come up, and I'm getting jealous, and I'm going through these things, how can I express this to my partner in a safe way? Which means, number one, dealing with the process myself, which is I need to be sovereign in my own process, which means I'm not dumping on my partner. But if it's something that's recurring, I'm able to communicate this to my partner by creating a container of, hey, my love, do you have 15 minutes? I need to express something that's coming up. I would love if you can hold some space for me. And then I'm, in a way, able to express and communicate, because I've created this container already. So you can see how it's kind of like morphed and evolved into this container that I'm able to express, and then my partner is, with permission, able to receive. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of consent and permission when you're talking with conscious communication, especially with women, because they're very sensitive, and they're very open to energies, and they're very open to dumping. So what ends up happening with a lot of men is, they tend to be, this idea of, what's the word I'm thinking of? Codependent emotionally, because it's this, okay, well, you want me to be vulnerable, take all my shit. And you're just like, whoa, dude, I'm not your mother. You need to deal with your shit, but come to me consciously when you have space and time, and I will offer you and honor what you're saying to me. You know what I mean? So this has progressed through a series of just awarenesses and communication. And the whole thing when it comes to relationships in any regard is being able to communicate all of these things that are coming up as consistently as possible, as respectfully as possible. Does this all make sense?
Yes, 100%. It's been like, that's such a beautiful evolution of how you've got to where you are. And I think it's so incredible, only because I think a lot of men in this day and age, and especially in like Western society, find being vulnerable a weakness. And it's so beautiful that you found this path to where you are now, essentially by yourself, through self-awareness and like taking in all of life's lessons. So I wonder if you could perhaps, just because I think a lot of men that are listening aren't ready to be vulnerable or can't see the value in being vulnerable with their partner, what kind of advice would you give to them? Because I mean, we can talk about toxic masculinity or the wounded masculine and all that, but how would you like soften someone into becoming more of the divine masculine and being able to be vulnerable with their partner?
Communication, 100%. So, a lot of guys are so scared that when I tell you my vulnerabilities, you're going to see it as a weakness and leave me. It's a big thing, as much as we want to deny it. We're scared that if we give you our full vulnerability, that you'll be like, oh, this brother's weak. I got to go to a stronger guy, So we've been conditioned like fully over, generations of suppressing this and not crying and not showing emotion, right? So while stepping into this new version or this older version of, divine masculinity. And the biggest way of doing this is through communication. So I'll have a lot of brothers that I talk with and I try to help and aid. And whatever I implore you to communicate it to your partner. So what that's going to start moving through is when you're feeling insecure, when you're feeling like you have a desire, communicate it. A big thing of my last recent evolution is I communicate everything. And it's not in a space of just dumping everything, but if I'm wanting something, I'll communicate it. So, and also the feminine will feel safer when I am communicating everything, because then she doesn't feel like I have something that's hidden that I'm not communicating. So the more I communicate, the more she can feel safe and the more she can trust me. And the feminine needs to trust the masculine to hold her, in essence, in order to really surrender. So that means, how do I do that? Communication of everything. And in the beginning, it might be a lot for the woman. It might be like, okay, well, this dude's communicating a lot of fucking insecurities. Things are coming up, but it has to happen. It has to happen. Like there's no perfect, like, oh my God, let me just randomly out of like 10 generations of not communicate perfectly my vulnerabilities, So there has to be this understanding of like, also with the woman or partner going, hey, listen, if this is a space of I'm needing to communicate a lot of this so I can really open this up, then I would really love you to be able to hold that space. And what does that look like? How would you like me to approach you when I need to tell you this stuff? And then that's where I'm also giving you some of that control of, hey, actually, I would really prefer it if we don't do it at night, or I'd prefer like maybe you check in with me before you want to communicate. So it's this check-in with your partner, and then it's the availability and the permission to be just sharing what's coming up. And it's going to be a lot. Like, men have a lot of conditioning and programming and pain. So it's going to be a lot. That's one. The second is men need to be working with other men, which means they need to be sitting in circle. And they need to be chatting with other bros. They need to be relating with other brothers and being able to share all of this collective guilt and pain with each other, because all of us guys, we're going through the same shit consistently, just different times. We need to be able to sit in circle, tribe style, and be able to release and relate to things that we're going through. Of like, fuck, guys, this is what I'm going through. This is the pain I feel. And another brother will go like, dude, I'm in the same boat. And to be able to relate in that way, the masculine needs to hold the pain of the masculine. The feminine shouldn't hold the pain of the masculine. The masculine should do the masculine, and that allows us to ease the communication with the feminine, instead of that dumping that I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we do the work. We need to do the work with ourselves and within men. And so we can come to the feminine with a softer version of communication. Because as much as we don't want to, dump and do these things, it will affect you at a point, 100%.
Yeah. I think
that's 100% spot on. I mean, even for myself, when I started to show my vulnerabilities, I started to feel lighter. I didn't feel like I was carrying weights of being a man on my shoulders. I didn't have to. So you're right. As soon as you start opening up your vulnerabilities, everything around you in terms of like what you're feeling just lightens up. So you actually realize just it's okay to show that I'm not that strong, or I have a weakness, or I'm scared of that. As soon as you say it and your partner doesn't react in a way you think she's going to, then you realize it wasn't that bad. My vulnerability actually isn't bad, and it makes you closer. Your connection is more honest, and yeah, you were 100% spot on.
I'm happy to hear it, brother. It's really good. It's the deconditioning. Seeing it as a strength and not a weakness. I'm also lucky. A current partner of mine, she gets turned on when I'm super vulnerable. It makes her so happy and just turns on like crazy, which is fucking magical, because it's this idea of, oh my God, she grew around like a more of a machismo culture where there's agendas and there's it's like projection. It's not really like vulnerability of truth.
Yeah.
So when I'm like, babe, I'm going through an insecure moment right now, I feel weak, I feel nervous, I feel like my energy is just not there, and I don't want to project it on you, but I need you to know this is where I'm at right now, and she will just be like, oh my God, this is beautiful, come here. So it's beautiful, and to have it received in that way is so beautiful, because it makes me want to do it more. You know what I mean?
You're more comfortable doing it. There are certain things that you're still holding back and you're still vulnerable about. Like you said, the more you do it, the more consistent you're vulnerable. I think the less you'll start feeling in terms of that vulnerability, because you're not holding on to it anymore. As soon as you start speaking about your vulnerabilities, it becomes a lot easier to notice them.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What's the most current piece of vulnerability that you've shared with Rox lately?
Sure. It's been a lot. More about my lack of self-belief, because to most people I come across as very assured, very confident, but Rox knows deep down that I do struggle big time with money beliefs, self-belief in terms of what I'm worth. And so that's probably, I think that was last week or most weeks. Every time we do our goals, she knows.
I love it. That's the work together. It's beautiful.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm happy to see it. Very cool.
Yeah, I think it's so important for couples to recognize the value in open and honest communication with each other. I mean, I think our biggest pivotal point in terms of starting our evolution into a more conscious relationship was, I don't know if you know Layla Martin.
Yeah. I've heard.
Yeah, so she was on an Aubrey Marcus podcast, and I just fell in love with her. And she had this new tantric date night video. So got Josh all excited about date night, put my laptop out, started playing this video, and there was no sex involved, much to his dismay, but it was just sitting together, holding space for each other, speaking about our fears and what we love about each other, what
we're scared of.
And it was just
2 minutes of just staring. It was very intimate, and like you get uncomfortable moments when you're not used to doing that, or I'm expecting like, pound town. And I'm staring. I'm like, okay, my phone. But the more as we were going, the easier it became, and then at the end, I was like, felt like, I don't know. At the end, it happened, but I felt amazing after that.
What was your sensation that you were feeling through this when you were connecting so deeply?
Well, while we were talking, it felt a little bit like awkward. You're not used to staring at someone and telling them what I'm scared of, especially like when about to have sex. Like, I do worry about this, I worry about that.
Totally.
But I would say like I said earlier, a lot lighter, almost like just like a relief of like, of light. It was just like a nice vibration around me. Just to see Rox smiling and so happy that I was part of that was a nice feeling too. Very nice connecting moment.
Yeah, it comes back to connection.
Yeah.
Sensual connection does not mean sexual.
Yes.
It's this eye gazing, being as present as you can with your partner. And once you're eye gazing, it's like an opening. It's an opening to the soul. It's an opening to the vulnerability. So when you're doing this, you're setting the container to open up within the safety. And when you do this, there's this depth and it feels more real. So when you're connecting, you're not just like, oh, okay, well, we're going to have sex because that's my programming. Exactly. I make you come, and then I come. Even though I don't really know if I'm feeling anything. I'm just fucking. This is what I've been taught to do. I see it on porn. So there's this idea that when you're starting to build the sensuality factor, and Tantra is a beautiful way to not only connect with your own desires and your own sensuality, but it helps you recognize that in your partner's sensuality. So you can understand her more by understanding yourself through Tantra work. So this is where the beauty lies. And also slowing down, breathing during sex, breathing during foreplay. It's fucking powerful. So I'm really happy you guys have done that, because the more you do that, it's just gonna, spice up the sensuality side so well.
It's awesome.
I wonder if you could quickly just explain the difference between sexuality and sensuality, because I think a lot of people get confused with the two terms.
So for me, sensuality is emotion-based. It's touch-based. It's feel-based. When I'm sensual with someone, it can be dancing with someone and not even touching them. There's a sensuality. For me, it's like a dance. It doesn't have to be touching. It's this idea that we're playing with each other's energy in a very beautiful, consensual way, kind of like masculine and feminine. And I do this a lot when I dance with women. I move with them, and it's like I have to understand how their body moves in order to be able to relate. And it's this idea that we just want to play with this tangible energy and build this sensuality and this desire and this love and this connection, and the idea is we're doing this without generally physical touch, and it doesn't have to be sexual. So going to the sexuality side there's two parts. There's understanding your sexuality. That means stepping in your own sexuality as a woman or a man and owning that space of, I'm a sexual being as well, but not necessarily needing to enter another human being in this capacity, even though we understand sexuality as, okay, well, we're getting down, we're way more physical. But to me, there's the two parts of it. The sensuality is almost like the foreplay. You have to build this safety and connection with this partner of yours before you become sexual. So a lot of the space and time in which I also tell women is, don't offer it up too quickly. A man is very much like the gas and the brake, the gas, and the woman is like the brake, because his program is to just go, and her program is to want to be like, whoa, like go slow, take it easy, So when he can learn to be hard and masculine and hold you, but also soft and gentle and easy and sensual, those two mirrored together are fucking magical.
I love that.
If that explains. Yeah.
Yes. I love that. I think it's so important for people to realize that there's more to intimacy than just the sexual side of things, right? We have to be communicating with our partner. We have to be playing with our senses as well. And we have to be just holding space for each other. Because I think the more you are bonded on a conscious and spiritual level, the better everything else in your relationship's going to be.
Mm.
Mm.
And I can add something to that. I think it's important to have communication around what we like sexually, like hyper, you know, which a lot of people don't do because it's taboo, even in the spiritual community. Hey, babe, what do you like in sex? What really turns you on? Do you want me to choke you? Do you want another person in? Do you want another guy in? It's easy for us to be like, oh, I would love another woman in the relationship. Sometimes the partner wants another guy, you know, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to bring another guy in, but you need to have the conversation around it. And it's going to make you uncomfortable, but it's important that your partner feels heard when you're expressing your desires, and get creative. Bring out the ropes, bring out some handcuffs, what really turns you on? What's that little bit that's going to kind of push a little bit of that sensuality and that sexuality, because we live in this container of, okay, well, we do it this way, but that's a little scary. How could we push that a little bit? And that also leads to, what do I like sexually? Because we're so used to doing something a certain way, we lose track of, like, we have so much guilt around sex as well, man. What do I like sexually? I like to be dominated because I'm always in a dominating position. So the roles need to be reversed in order for me to just surrender. You know what I mean? So these are kind of questions and conversations that I also implore couples to have. Get a little creative. It's going to get a little like antsy and fiery and be like, oh, this is uncomfortable, but it's fucking great.
I love that. I want to touch on shame a little bit, because I think obviously in this matrix that we find ourselves in, we are conditioned to feel shame around our sexuality and everything that goes with that. Do you have any advice for people who do suffer with these intense feelings of shame that almost hinder their communication skills with their partner, to overcome this conditioning of shame that we all have around sex?
So, I live in a very interesting community where we're very open sexually. And a lot of my, really close sisters are, in their power, in their sexuality, owning their sexuality, after years and generations of suppression, just to give you an idea. And I think this is important for men to understand. Women walk around with a feeling of fear that we don't, of, can I just wear my top open like this? Or am I going to be hit on, or am I going to be chased or abused, or in somehow, put in a position where I'm going to go through trauma? Because most women have been through trauma, sexual and otherwise. So a lot of my sisters have been through heavy trauma, and they've covered themselves up now. They walk differently, they act differently because of what they've been through. So now there's this understanding of like getting rid of this shame around trauma, but also around this generational trauma of a woman not being able to express their sexuality and step into the power, or the church is going to burn you. You know what I mean? So there's been a lot of women coming into their power, their witch, this new version of themselves, which is so powerful and beautiful. So for me, this idea around shame is speaking about the shame, speaking about what's coming up, stepping into circles where you guys can talk. Women's circles are powerful in this way. You can talk about the shame of what's coming up. You can talk about how it's controlled your life and how it's dominated the way you've done everything in your life. So again, group settings is a beautiful way to let go of the shame, because it's collective, because it's not just you going through it. There's so many other people have gone through it. So there's this, oh, I'm held in my shame, I'm held in my trauma. And it helps you release a lot of what has come up, a lot of what's happening, and therefore made you lighter. And then from there, kind of moving into and also making, actionable moves that will help you move in and away from the shame. I have a sister of mine who I said recently, I was like, hey, listen, I have a brother, he's 20 years younger than you, but he finds you very attractive. Will you be open to seeing him? And she's like, I'm attracted to him. It's beautiful. I'm just feeling a lot of shame around, I'm coming out of divorce. I have 3 kids, and now I'm seeing a guy who's 20 years younger than me. Like, there's a lot of shame around that. So there's so much shame, especially for women. around this, can I do this, or how is it seen? I have kids, can I do this, or how is that seen? I'm going to be judged. So my advice was, you can go as slow as you want. You can set the boundaries that you need to. But I think it's important to take actionable steps in order to kind of move through the shame and into these desires and something that you like. Because I was saying, is it something that you like and it's something that's enticing you? Are you interested? Are you curious? If so, you can move at your own pace, knowing you can establish boundaries whenever you need. And you can voice these as well to this potential partner and to, people in your life. And it helps just lighten the load. And it helps create the container of, oh, I'm in a space where I can express myself and express these shames and these vulnerabilities that are coming up. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think it always boils down to communication and vulnerability again.
Totally. Yeah. 100%. Like it's just, that's what it is,
I wanted to ask, for someone who's been operating in a very wounded masculine mindset, let's call it that, do you have any advice for them, like small actionable steps they could take in order to feel more comfortable starting to be more vulnerable, whether it's with their mates or their lover or whoever it may be? Because I know a lot of men just cringe at the thought of telling people their weaknesses or telling people their struggles. And I just wondered if there's an easy way to transition them into this open communication vibe.
So, I'm not going to say, I don't like saying it's not easy, but, it will take time because you're deconditioning yourself in order to become vulnerable and express this to your mates. But a lot of the time, I live in a beautiful bubble where, we're very consciously communicative, right? But I can go home with my boys and not necessarily step into this conversation super easy, or there'll always be one or two guys of the group who maybe want to, open this level of communication up. And maybe they're fearful that if they start opening up to their mates about this, their mates will be like, oh, dude, stop being a pussy, well, that's weird. Why are you talking like this? So there's a large version of this toxicity masculine that is still there. And the idea is, how do we be able to kind of move into this level of vulnerability and expression while, not feeling like we're judged by our mates and our partner? So for me, it's the sense of, coming back to the original question is, I would say reach out to your closest guy who can understand you. Reach out to someone that inspires you. Either join a men's group, open that level of communication up with your partner, where, hey, let's do something a little bit out of the ordinary. I want to be able to express myself in this way and get super vulnerable. Is this something that would be open to us? Because there's a lot of time where I have men and I'm like, hey, listen, conscious communication looks like this. And they'll be like, Kyle, I went to my partner and we're like, hey, babe, can we do this? And she completely, maybe flipped out or said no, because she wasn't in the space to hold that communication. Because it's easy to be like when both parties are like, oh, high five, let's do this. But it's hard when it's this one person who's wanting to step into this and maybe isn't held by friends or partner. So that means find someone or a group that is in more alignment with the things that you're trying to get or trying to learn. So it's like, if I want to learn something, I go, okay, cool. Who's the best at that? I want to go study with them. So if you want to learn to be more vulnerable, maybe go express this to someone in your life who's very vulnerable. It could be a mother, it could be a family member, whoever it may be, and be like, this is the first transition and point in which I can basically open up this level of communication. So find that one person or that group to help, and that should kind of start to ease the process into opening up, vulnerability and communication.
I love that. Yeah.
But I mean, you can't just say, listen, go do this, go do that. You as an individual needs to want to achieve these goals. So you can't say, I can't force Roxy. Listen, you need to go to groups so that you can start being more vulnerable. I think the person genuinely themselves needs to want to either change, doesn't know how to change.
Yeah.
Obviously that there, because I mean, for myself, if Rox could never force me to do this, she could never force me to come sit and stare at that. If someone did that to me, I'd probably retract and I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. I wanted to change for myself. I knew that by me opening up and being vulnerable was only going to better myself. So I think the steps that you said are unbelievable. I'm actually going to start looking into more mates, because my mates and I, we're all vulnerable with each other. We all talk about our insecurities together, and it's all like these masculine type of puts, you know. And but it's been like,
I love it.
and as it's gone on, those mates have now, you said, have become a very close circle, and I kind of find myself only gathering within that circle, because we're not scared to talk about our feelings and our struggles that we have. So I think your steps are amazing, but just a lot of people have to want to do it. You have to want to be part of that. You can't just what is that? What is consciousness? What is vulnerability?
Yeah.
Man, you have to really want to, deep down, you have to feel something inside of you that wants to change that.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I think at the end of the day, it's, you know, when you go through this process of your awakening, you realize that everyone is at their own pace.
Yeah.
So, and that might work or might not work. And that's something you have to also discuss with your partnership and with your friends, you know, because it's this idea of, these are the conversations I want to have. And if my close bros don't have this type of conversation, am I going to want to spend as much time with them? You know, same as with the partner. If my partner can't understand me of the level that I'm coming at, then maybe it's not the right partner at that point in time. But I want to give her the option to grow with me.
100%.
You know, and that's where it is. It's kind of like, you know, I'm not going to let go of my boys that I've known since I was 4 years old because I'm having a spiritual awakening. You know, I'm going to learn to calibrate my frequency to hanging with my boys who know me for X, Y, and Z, but not expect them to come to my level and talk about the things I want to talk about. Correct. It's up to me to find that group and to find those people in order to open up about these things. And you realize you have these different people in your life for different things. And we don't want to just exit people because they're not resonating at the things that we want to resonate at. You know what I mean? And it goes back to like sovereignty and dealing with your own emotions. And if you're wanting to get a certain way, it's up to you to find those mentors as well, if it's in alignment.
I think it's so important that you brought that up, because I think obviously like humans are generally scared of change, right? Yes. And I think what you brought up about you're going to have your mates who aren't changing or going through the same process or awakening or whatever it may be as you. And it's important to look for a new group or a new person or whatever it may be that you do resonate with and that you are aligned with in that specific journey, so that you have support in that avenue of your life, but then you still have your original mates that you can go and like have drinks with or have a braai with or play rugby with, whatever it is that you do with your mates from school, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and this is what I was, you know, when you have your spiritual awakening, more or less, right? You have this, you know, as pull out of the matrix, you have this idea that you want to be like, it's all love and frequency and energy and la la la, and like, you know, your parents and some of your closest friends will be like, what are you smoking to?
Sounds so.
Sorry, breaking up. Hello?
I was like,
sorry.
That's okay. I was like, you guys look super still right now. And you're like stuck in one position. And I'm like, wow, they're obviously in like a meditation or some shit. Awesome.
Just technical difficulties. Sorry, what were you saying? That whole thing.
We lost you pretty much started.
Okay, no worries. So the idea was like, you know, when I had my spiritual awakening, it was like I was going home and be like, Mom, you're doing it wrong. It's all energy and it's frequency and la 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 and this that. And she's like, Kyle, stop taking drugs, seriously. like what are you doing in the jungle over there? And I'm like, Mom, we're taking medicine and we're breathing, and and so this idea that they just maybe not understanding of the journey. One of my mentors and one of my closest brothers was like, bro, don't try to change people. You can offer little seeds and suggestions and articles to help people maybe get inspired about X, Y, and Z, but do not force them or do not expect them to be reaching to your level out of your expectation. Because who says by me having a spiritual awakening my journey is better than yours? You know what I mean? This is just my journey in whatever angle it's going. So through this idea, I've learned to really just appreciate everyone's journey for where they are and meet them where they are as best as I can.
I think that's so important, because I think when a lot of people do have this like spiritual awakening and start on their self-development journey, it's so hard not to judge people who aren't on the same journey as you, because you now are like, I found the way, I found the light, this is how we should all be. And you start kind of projecting that onto people, and it pushes them away. It makes them think you're lost your mind. And I think it's so important how you said, like, not to judge anyone else's journey. Everyone is where they should be. And yeah, I mean, that's saying you can take a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. You must just focus on your own journey. And in doing so, I think you tend to attract people on a similar journey into your life anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of respect the people that come in and out of your life,
Yeah.
I was thinking now, going back to what you were saying earlier, a lot of your mates that aren't, say, like you said, going through what you're going through. But what happens is, I find, is when you're going through it, your whole vibration changes with how you are with everyone. And the mates you would never have thought of ever talking to you about anything vulnerable are talking to you about it. Before you know it, most of your mates that you've never thought of are actually talking to you about their problems. And so I found once I changed, my mates started to gravitate towards me, even ones that I wouldn't, even I think the guys that wouldn't have. So I think it's interesting, because you still have your other mates that aren't, but I feel like generally most men won't admit it, but they all are searching for it, regardless of how tough you are. You're all searching for that inner peace and that calmness. And I feel like if you can inspire your friends, like you said, without telling them, just by your actions and how you are living, for them to see the change in me has been an inspiration, I think, for them, because a lot of them now are, hey, Josh, let's have a chat about this. Can I talk to you about this? Okay, cool.
Hell yeah.
I'm no guru or no coach, but I have noticed how things are changing with how guys are reacting.
That's beautiful, dude. It's you by going through your process, you're giving people permission to feel and to ask questions and to do this. And that's important. Like when you're stepping into your full truth, you're allowing people and you're giving them permission to go, holy shit, this person's acting this way and they're acting themselves and they look so vibrant. Like, oh, it's giving me permission to now act more vibrant, in whatever capacity. So it's this idea that, people always like, how do I do this? And how do I do that? And something that's always come up is be the change that you want to see. So instead of like going to people and saying this and saying that, it's you be the change, and you'll naturally see this ripple effect start to, get people, permission, and start asking questions and be like, hey, Josh, you do this, and I've noticed you like this. Maybe we can hop on a call, or maybe we can just have a chat. Do you mind? And it's a beautiful responsibility to be like, hey, I'm happy that I'm inspiring you in this way. Let's drop into a conversation.
100%.
I'm happy to hear it, bro.
There's a big conscious shift happening within men at the moment because of a lot of mental illnesses going on. There's a lot of pressure on a guy now because you might have lost a job, you might have pay cuts, business isn't going so well. And as we've been taught, men come home with the bacon, we provide. And as a man, if you can't provide, what are you to your family? So a lot of guys are feeling that pressure and not being able to provide. So their guys are going through the issues. And I think a lot of guys that really are at a point where when they start talking about it, they're actually feeling better. It's like, hang on a second, it's okay to be vulnerable. finally, I don't have to, I'm not the only one that's going through this pressure. There's thousands of guys that are feeling just like the same as I am. So it's a lot of, I think there's a big shift happening in terms of the pressure that guys are going through, and they're seeing that, listen, talking about it is not that bad. It's actually helping you through us. I think it's, well, maybe I'm just more aware of it now. So I think it's just happening, but I could be wrong.
No, it's happening. It's happening. Guys are now having collective permission to feel.
Yeah.
Which is powerful. And it's just beautiful. And not thousands, every single man goes through it. And I call it totally I call it performance pressure. So this idea that men have to always perform, earn the bacon, do this, do that, activate, go to the lady, initiate sex, do this constantly. We're always trying to perform in order to feel like we have worth.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Totally. Yeah, 100%. And that's this constant pressure. Now it's like, okay, well, a woman can earn as much, if not more money than we can. So then what the fuck is our purpose right now?
Yeah, exactly.
What's up? We don't know that. And we're taught to, stay away from all emotions and all vulnerability, So we're kind of like in the space of like, where the fuck are we right now? You know what I mean? So the idea behind that is it's good. We need that. Like we need to be lost, and we need to be breaking down this old foundation. And this is the way it happens collectively, is this confusion of who the fuck am I? Where am I? This is where this whole growth and internal work comes in the feminine, which is my vulnerability. Who am I? Where am I? Am I questioning? This is my vulnerable side. This is my feminine energy, right? So that's where the deep-seated work comes in. So when we're, doing the work and we're rebuilding, we now, in a more masculine way, have a sense that our direction and purpose is within alignment. And that happens when we do the work, and that we don't just go, earn, ego for whatever reason. You know what I mean? I got to earn more money. Wait, why? I got to, do this all the time. Wait, why? What's the point of that? Is it coming from my heart-centered awareness? Generally, no. So that's why the work is so good. And to be in a space of confusion and fear is important. You need this in order to kind of break down and have these awakenings.
Yeah, true. Very true.
Even though it sucks and it's scary and it's not cool, and and there's a lot of guys going through a lot of heavy shit right now too. Like, it's a part of it. So if we're in a space where we can help facilitate these men and help hold space for these men, it's important that we do that. Like, it's very important.
Agreed. And also, I'm finding that the more you hold space for your mates, the better it makes me feel. Not only not to my ego, but just my performance in terms of how you can actually see when you have a conversation, how it's like, thanks, mate, I needed that.
Yeah, dude.
It's a good feeling.
It's called the masculine container, dude. Masculine Yeah. I love it. Yeah, for sure, dude. Like, think of this. The masculine is the riverbank and the feminine is the water, right? This needs to be strong in order for the water to flow. So the container needs to be strong so the feminine can surrender. So in order for guys to open up, that masculine container that you're showing up in and say, hey, brother, I got you. What do you need? You need some space? Let's sit down. Let's have a conversation. Fuck. Okay. Like, that's strong. You're masculine and strong. Okay, cool. I can now become vulnerable because your masculine container is there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where part of our work is done, especially for us.
I love that metaphor for the masculine and feminine. And I think it's so important as well to remember, like, there's also such a fine balance between like being strong and holding this riverbed and being too strong, because then you obviously constrict the flow of the feminine as well. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Agreed.
Amazing. I don't know if you have any questions.
I mean, we can carry on about, like, in terms of Costa Rica, a fascinating place. Roxana, it's on our bucket list, actually, maybe to end up one day, to be honest.
Oh, nice.
I'm fascinated by plant medicine, and can tell obviously that Costa Rica is very abundant in the plant medicine. Do you use that in your practice to help people? Is it part of your?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't use it for, I don't facilitate it.
Sure.
You know, I'll definitely like shift, you know, my friends into people I trust. So when doing medicine, you know, I always have to trust, you know, very heavily the people that are initiating and facilitating medicine. So generally, if I'm doing ayahuasca, then it's, you know, it's a lineage of types that I know and that I trust. So when I'm sitting with this medicine, I know they're holding me correctly. You know, so I sit with ayahuasca about twice a year. I sit with 2 types of different. I sit with Yahe from Colombia, and then I sit with Santo Daime, which is from Brazil.
Okay.
Wow.
Hold on. Hold. Decline. What was that?
Are you there?
Yeah, someone called me. Yeah. And I'm actually sitting with Cambo in the next 20 minutes.
Oh, wow. You serious?
Yeah. So I have a brother who I normally sit with every time he comes into town. So we're gonna go sit with him soon. Yeah, it's gonna be great.
See, that's one of the beauties of being there. It's like, oh, I feel like doing this today. 20 minutes, I'm there.
Dude, honestly, totally. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go to a breath work, and then we're gonna go to an ecstatic dance, and then I'm gonna go sit in ceremony, and then we'll do a cacao ceremony to finish. Yay.
Casual, like on a Tuesday.
Literally, dude. Literally.
That's amazing.
I love it.
So, you know, that to me is proper living. That's freedom.
Yeah. It's powerful, man. It's really beautiful, and it's, you know, I'm grateful to be in a community where it's so freely offered, you know.
100%.
On that note, before we finish off, because obviously you've got places
things
to be, in terms of plant medicine and other tools and techniques, like you said, ecstatic dancing and breathwork, what would you like list as your top, let's say 3 to keep it short, practices that you can work or do together as a couple in order to improve that conscious connection that you have with them?
I would definitely say, you know, I'm a big believer in, you know, in terms of, you know, sovereign work, which means individual work is important. But then as a couple, it's also important to have points in the day where you're connecting, you know, whether it's through breath work, whether it's through, you know, if you have busy days, if you can do this, you know, hey babe, let's do 5 minutes of eye gazing just before you leave, or like a couple minutes of eye gazing when you come home. So these ideas of, you know, where you're connecting with your partner. I mean, there's many practices of like meditations and this and that, but with partnership, I feel it's super important to be able to check in with each other. So through breath work is also powerful, you know, and that could be, there's multiple types of breath that you can do with your partner, do by yourself. I always recommend using, you know, a lot of breath in your own practice as well. But with partnerships specifically, eye gazing, connection, you know, words of affirmation. Also, a highly thing I think is important is understanding your partner's love language, which is, if you guys know this, you have the 5 love languages. So know how you like to receive love, and you tell your partner how you like to receive love. So this is also a huge practice in speaking the same language as your partner, which is, hey babe, I like words of affirmation, and, you know, I also like touch and affection. You know what I mean? So when we're out, I like to make sure that you can check in with me and just come and touch my arm or kiss my neck. And that's really important to me because it makes me feel held, you know. And words of affirmation, you know, just tell me that, you know, I've done good, or tell me that I've just been seen. These types of practices are super powerful because that's where you're working on the relationship specifically as well, which is like a separate bubble. So all these practices are actually for the relationship. You know, you have your 2 individual places, which are you, and then you have the third, which connects both of you, which is the relationship. So this is an important part to understand that takes nurturing. You know, that's the, hey babe, we're gonna meditate together and hold hands for 5 minutes every morning. You know, whatever that looks like. You know, feel out what your practices and what you want to do and what you can consistently do.
Perfect. I love
Awesome,
that.
brilliant.
I
That's
actually
great.
have the Love Languages book next to my bed. I'm going to read that after I finish my intensely
Yeah.
hectic.
Well, you guys should do together. Yeah, read it together. Honestly, it'll be good.
Amazing.
Yeah, that could be
Put
cool.
on the list of things to do.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Amazing. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. It's been super insightful and very
It
interesting.
was lovely to meet you, Carl.
Brother, it's an absolute pleasure. And Rox, it's such a pleasure to see you again, love.
You too. Before we go, if people want to get in contact with you or follow you on Instagram, how can they do that?
So you can just do Instagram's probably the easiest. It's Kyle.Mitri, Mitri. And yeah, they can just reach out to me. A lot of my, my people are word of mouth. But yeah, if you feel inspired, send me a message.
Incredible. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Carl. Have a good one.
It's been a pleasure, guys.
Yeah,
Guys, we'll stay in touch. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
And let me know if you have questions about Costa. Like I'll always be available for that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We'll be in touch.
Definitely. Enjoy your trip.
You know, what's up? I'm going to be throwing up in about an hour. So it's really good.
Have fun.
Have fun.
Right on. Okay, guys. Much love.
Cheers.
See you later.
Bye.
Ciao.